Alright, welcome back everyone. Welcome back to episode 6 of our Rust for the Absolute Beginner tutorial series. And today we are learning about control flow in Rust. So one of the most important building blocks of any programming language is to allow you to run specific blocks of code depending on certain conditions. And one of the most important ways or most basic ways of doing that is the if expression, right? So let's see how we can write an if expression in Rust. So for example, here in our main function, we can say let x equals to 5, and we'll say if, right? And in Rust, right, for an if expression, you do not need to wrap it around in brackets. Okay, we'll just say if x equals to 5, and we'll print out. We'll say hey x is 5. All right, and we'll also print out end of program at the bottom. All right, and if we run this program in our terminal, okay, by using cargo run once again, you will say hey x is 5 and end of program. So if we go back to the code to check out what is happening, right, you notice that this line hey x is 5 is printed out because x is indeed 5. So this if expression, okay, must be a boolean, okay, when you use it with the if expression. Because if x equals to 5 is either true or false. Remember our data types, so that's a boolean. So for example, if we change this to 10, okay, and save, and let's run it again. Clear that. Okay, and we'll run it again. Okay, notice now hey x is 5 is no longer printing out. So what if you want to check for multiple conditions? So in addition to if, okay, we can also use if else. Right? We can also say else if x equals to 10. You can say print line hey x is 10 instead. All right. Okay, and lastly, if x is not 5 or 10, okay, we can also say else print line hey x is not x 5 or 10. All right. So if we change x, say to 8, okay, what will get printed out? Right, let's check out our terminal to see the results. Let's say cargo run again. All right, it will say, hey, x is not 5 or 10. Because x is 8. So what happened here in the code? Okay, Rust checks the first expression. Okay, if x equals to 5, okay, in this case it's false. So Rust will not run this line. Okay, next it checks for whether x is 10, right, with the else if. Okay, but x is not 10, so it will not run this line as well. And x is 8, which falls under this else condition. Which is why this gets printed out. So that is how you can leverage on the if and if else and else expression in Rust to only run certain code based on certain conditions as well. Alright, now what if you want to do the same thing over and over again? Say for example, if you want to print a statement, okay, but you want to do it 10 times. For example, if you have a print line here, okay, that says count is count. And we'll define count as 0. Okay, and after printing count, okay, we want to increment it. All right, and of course, let's make this mutable. All right. And we want to do the same thing over and over again. So basically we want to do this maybe 10 times. Yeah. So count plus equals to 1 again. We want to say count equals to 1, count equals to 2. Or rather, count is 1, count is 2, and so on and so on. Yeah, like this. Right? Imagine if we keep writing this, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Yeah, which is why we can use loops in Rust. Okay, so instead of doing all this, all right, let's remove that. Okay, once again, we'll say let mute count equals 0. Okay, in Rust, you can easily create a loop by using the loop keyword. All right, so loop. Okay, and we'll say count plus equals to 1. And of course, before that, we'll print line. And we'll print out count is now count. All right, and of course, because this will cause the program to run in a loop, especially for these two lines. If we do not exit out of this loop, it will go on infinite. It will go on forever and eventually crash the program. Yeah. So if we save this, okay, it is better that we get out of the loop, and you can do that by using the break keyword. Okay, and of course we only want to break or exit out of the loop when count is equals to 10 or more than 10. Yeah, break. All right, so save that. All right, so let's go back to our terminal. Let me just clear that and watch what happens when we do a cargo run to run our program. Yeah, so notice now it prints out count is now 0 all the way to count is now 10, and it stops there. Yeah, because if we go back to the code, so what is happening here is, we created a mutable variable count integer 0, where we gave it the value 0. Okay, and we went into the loop to print out count is now 0. Yeah, and then we added 1, incremental count by 1. So count is now 1. Okay, and here Rust checks if count is more than 10. Since count is not 10 yet in our first loop, okay, it will run this again. So this keeps repeating. Hence, we'll see or we saw count equals to 0 all the way to 10. Okay, which is true for this expression if count is more than 10. Okay, and we will get out of the loop by using this break keyword. Yeah, so this is how one of the ways you can use loops in Rust. Yeah. All right, another way you can use loops in Rust is with conditional loops using the while keyword. Yeah, so instead of writing it this way, okay, let's remove them. Okay, we can say while count is less than 10, right? And same thing here, we print out count is now count, and count plus equals to 1, and that's it. Right? We do not even need the break keyword. All right, so if we go back to terminal, all right, let's clear that and let's run the Rust program again. Yeah, notice now, right, count is now 0, runs all the way to 9. Yeah, so what is happening here is, let's go back to the code. Right, Rust saw that we have a loop here, so it checks for this expression while count is less than 0. Yeah, so in the first run, the first loop, count is still 0 and is less than 10. Yeah, so this will be true. Yeah, so Rust knows that this is true, so it prints out count is now 0, and we increment count by 1. So count becomes 1, and it goes back to check this expression again. Yeah, so this repeats until count becomes 10, which is not less than 10. Yeah, which is why we didn't see count is now 10. Okay, but if we want to see count is now 10, okay, we can easily say, well, count less than or equals to 10. Yeah, so save that. And if we go back to our terminal, right, clear that and run it again. So now you can see count is less than 10. I mean, count is now 10 right next to me. Yeah. And let's go back to our code. Yeah, so this is another way you can use loops with conditional expressions. Yeah. All right, but this approach to using loops could be problematic because we have to be careful and take note of the max number here. Okay, and we also have to control the counter used in this expression here. Yeah. Okay, and that is done by using this count plus equals to 1. Okay, which could be problematic. Yeah. So instead of using this conditional while loop, okay, another third way, which I personally think is the better way to use loops, is using the for loop. Yeah. So let's remove this. We can say, let's remove this first. So for example, if we have an array, say let items or numbers. Okay, if we have an array of numbers, for example, let's say 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, for example, all right? Yeah, so instead of using a counter, right, and one that you have to keep track and constantly increment, yeah. So let's see how that looks like first, yeah. So we have to say let count or counter equals 0, and then while counter less than, okay, so we see numbers, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so we have 5 items in numbers, for example. All right, and we can print out, we can get the number in each index of the array by doing this. Each number equals to numbers counter. Yeah, since counter starts from 0, yeah. And we just print it out. Okay, each number is now each number. All right, and we also have to take care of incrementing that counter. So plus equals to 1, and we have to make it mutable. Yeah, mute. All right, save that, and let's take a look at terminal. All right, let's clear that, and if we run the program again, right, it should say 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Yeah, so let's go back to the code. Yeah, so the problem with this way of doing loops is that we have to keep track of the max number here so that we know the maximum times it will run. Okay, and the counter itself. Okay, we have to keep track of the incrementation. Yeah, so this could be problematic if we do not do this. Yeah, or if this is too high a number, for example. Yeah, there can be many scenarios leading to problematic situations. Yeah, so instead of doing it this way, okay, we do not need to use the while conditional expression loop. So instead of doing it this way, we can use the for keyword. Yeah, so let's clear all that. All right, and we can say for each number in numbers. Yeah, and we just print line. Each number is now each number. All right, save that, and let's go back to terminal, clear that, and let's run the program again. Yeah, so notice now it prints out the same thing. Yeah, each number is now 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Okay, let's go back to our code. Okay, so the advantage we have here using the for loop over the while loop is, of course, the reduced number of lines you have to write, and Rust helps you to take care of the number of times this has to run. Yeah, so there's no index out of bounds error in this situation. And you don't even need to care about the counter and the maximum number of items in this numbers array. Yeah, you do not even need to care about that. Yeah, so you can see how much better this is, and this is also why the for loop is one of the most commonly used loops in Rust. Alright, next we need to learn about one of the most key critical concepts in Rust, and that is ownership and borrowing.